Hey, this is St. John. You're listening to Misery Point Radio.
Welcome back, Revelators! Thanks for joining me again on Misery Point Radio. I trust you're taking the necessary steps to not contaminate the world with your filth. Thanks for that. And I know you're sitting around wondering if I'm dead yet and if there will be any more episodes to finish rotting what's left of your brain. Unfortunately for you, I am, in fact, still here, relatively virus-free and breathing just enough to bring you today's conversation with a local singer and songwriting legend. I mean, another local songwriting legend. Besides myself. I appreciate the acknowledgement, though. It means a lot. Anyway, today's guest is a local icon named St. John. And when I say local, I mean literally within a few miles of me here in the Seattle area. And under normal circumstances, I'd have just had him grab his magic carpet and zip on over to the studio and have him do a live show right from here. But sadly, that just wasn't in the cards today. But don't worry your misshapen little heads. With the dark blood magic that is the internet, we were still able to have an awesome conversation and talk him into playing a few tunes for us. It was like a live stream, but without the live part, or the streaming part. But epic nonetheless. And on top of that, he put on his bard's hat and wove us a tale of how he became St. John, how he traveled the world on his many adventures, and how he conquered the mystical realm of the recording studio with the help of legendary heroes from far-off lands. And far-off bands. And by the way, in the Misery Point Radio first, I got invited to his funeral. In fact, so did all of you. You get a funeral invite, and you get a funeral invite, and you get a funeral invite. And if that's not an incentive to listen to the show, well then you're even more of a lost cause than I am. Negative 10,000 charisma, game over. So, put down that homemade katana, cancel your virtual LARPing session, and join us in the musical land of awesomeness. Check it out. All right. Hey, St. John, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this so much.
Yeah, you know, it's been a kind of a long time, and I apologize it took me so long to get off my ass and get you on, but I'm glad we're able to take advantage of the craziness in the world right now and actually kind of make this happen. So definitely an honor to have you on.
Yeah, it's the nature of it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, cool. So, recently I noticed that it was your birthday, so happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was a really great time. It's surprisingly, even despite what is going on, if people are listening to this, maybe at some point in the future saying, well, what are they talking about? Well, right now we're going through this COVID-19 social distancing measure.
Yeah.
So most of the world or much of the world is in their bedroom or in their homes right now, trying not to spread the virus around. So yeah, for me to celebrate my birthday in that environment, I was a little bit worried, like, I'm really used to, I want a lot of attention on my birthday. I'm a little bit like a diva-ish, and I want applause. I usually have a show where I have a bunch of friends come and even other performers. So, it was, making do in a time like this, and it was way better than I thought. We did a webcast, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your webcast a little bit later on in the show, but I did want to let you know that I was there. I did watch the live stream. You got a epic amount of engagement. I saw that people were buying you virtual beers. I'm a full-time musician, so I have a lot of those things worked into my show, so that if the people see my show and they respect the amount of work that I put into the entertainment for them, then they'll say, oh, I want to have a way to give back to this guy so he can keep doing it. And so I had a little tip link where somebody could buy me a beer on there. Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I definitely like that. It was an enjoyable webcast. I also like
thank you so much.
The fact that you have really cool backgrounds that you rendered in there. So I think you were sitting in Mars, if I remember correctly.
Oh, good. Yeah. I've been a couple of, I'm taking the social distancing thing very seriously. So yeah.
You're on another planet, man. That's pretty crazy.
In my various shows, I've had them in, different locations like Mars and the moon.
Yeah. That's awesome. Are you green screening that stuff?
Say again?
Are you green screening that, or is that a different program you're using?
Oh, I can't reveal. I mean, sir, I've got it. I can't let the illusion down. If there's any trickery going on, I don't want the audience to know.
He is a true magician, ladies and gentlemen, and he was in fact on Mars. We'll leave it at that.
Yes,
So
they need to tune into the show. They can deduce themselves the measures that I took to maintain my social distancing.
Man, that is effort times a million. So, well, of course, I'm sure you get asked this a lot, and I want to ask it. And of course, you don't have to reveal, since we're talking about keeping secrets, but the name Saint John.
Oh, yeah.
Last name, first name, combination thereof, nickname you got in school?
Technically, my first name is Saint. My last name is John. It's and I have a couple of middle names as well. So, but people, it's weird because people think it's Saint John is like one, like maybe it's my first name-ish type of thing. So they'll just cut off the Saint and they'll call me John, which is I'm used to it now, but it is a little bit, does turn my gear a little bit, like, oh, they're calling me by my last, no, it's not they're not thinking it's my last name. I have to remember that. No. Yeah. So technically, some people do call me just Saint or SJ.
Okay. So your legal name is Saint name John name.
I come from a very Irish and Italian Catholic family, and there was a fight in my family about what to name me, and so a whole bunch of names got dropped in. And my mother just capitulated and said, "Okay, we're going." Yeah, it's a little more common in. It's not so common in America. There are some other St. Johns that I've met or people named Saint in America, but it's a little more common in Canada or the UK or British Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it gets shortened to St. John.
Yeah, you can officially say that you're a saint.
Yeah. I didn't earn it though. I didn't. Although I like to say that I do, because become a saint, you have to. It's not that you have to be perfect or not commit any sin. It's really that you have to perform some miracles.
Sure.
So if you're going to prove your way, you got to perform miracles.
Well, and of course, Revelations is the perfect name for a band featuring somebody named St. John. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a huge fan of band names like Buddy Holly and the Crickets, Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. I just loved band names like that. So I said, well, I can take this part of my name and add it to this, and we have a cool band name.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And it's not a Christian band. Although I grew up in a Christian school. I went to church every Sunday, and I know the Bible very well. I'm definitely more sciencey than that tradition sort of leans, but I really appreciated the literature and the stories of it. And my favorite book of the Bible is Revelations. I love the dark imagery, and it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of it, and it was so. And it went along.
A song that I really like, incidentally, completely unrelated, but kind of related, I guess. John the Revelator, which is a really cool, really cool historical song. And then, of course, done many times over through the years by various artists. And my favorite rendition of that is probably the one that popped up on, Sons of Anarchy. But just such a really, really great song.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Oh,
do you know who covered it?
It might have been Curtis
in the show, or
Curtis Steiger, maybe, I believe.
I'll look it up. Cool.
But the original, going back in the day, I don't know if it's the original, but the one that you hear first, really kind of an old gospel tune. The gentleman that sings it got this really raspy, just gnarly voice. that sounds almost death metal, which is really cool.
There's some really neat videos on YouTube of Sunhouse singing like at parties in people's backyards, and it's just so raw and emotional. It's epic.
I like a lot of that old music, and that kind of has the some of the gospel roots, but they brought it into the modern times, kind of gave it a new twist. I absolutely love that. You know, I'm a huge fan of like Robert Johnson from back in the day, a lot of people have kind of covered his stuff, and I really like the history of music. So maybe you can do a cover of John the Revelator, and that'd be awesome.
Well, we'll see. There was the first band I was ever in was a blues band, actually. So this really fits nicely because I was working at a CD store, and I met this guy there who was totally. We noticed we were like always sort of shuffling through the same section in the blues areas, in the blues bins, and I was like, oh, we started talking about and he's a singer, and I was learning to play guitar, and so we said, well, let's put together a blues band where we just play like all these great songs by people like Robert Johnson and Magic Sam and Freddie King and Buddy Guy, and just the whole great spectrum of especially like Chicago and Southern blues. But it really taught me a lot about the guitar, about where to go on it and how to use it in the show.
Yeah, that's great. I guess we're digging into a little bit of history now. So first thing that I noticed, we started talking about this a little bit off the air, but that you were from Victoria, British Columbia, and I lived in Nanaimo, British Columbia for a few years during my youth. And so I've been to Victoria a number of times, stayed at the Empress a number of times, seen Butchart Gardens, and spent a lot of time in Vancouver and went kayaking in Sydney, a few years back. So I absolutely love that area. What was that area like for you as a kid?
Oh, man. So Victoria, and I go back all the time, actually. My mom still lives in Victoria now.
And you said mom.
She moved back. So, I'll go every few months. And I was supposed to go just a few days ago. It was my mom's birthday. And, of course, we're all locked down, so there's none of that. And she's older, so there's definitely no way anyone's coming in contact with her. But I still go back now, and I love it. It's idyllic in a way. It's just an island that, when people say, man, you seem really West Coast to me. So, well, I'm more west than the West Coast, because I'm from an island off the West Coast. We're there even a little bit later.
It is kind of like taking a step back in time still when you go to Victoria, at least downtown Victoria proper. I mean, like you still see the RCMP. They're literally still Mounties. And, it's got that really Victorian Old English kind of vibe to it.
So, in so many ways, it's more British than England is right now.
Yeah.
It is kind of this old colonial, almost backwater island that said, oh, no, we're, the empire moved on, and this little island didn't realize it.
Yeah.
I will you still go to and have tea in the afternoon. I'm drinking my tea right now on the show that I get from Victoria. Actually, it's a cup. I don't get any money from it. I'm going to mention their name because they're brilliant. It's Murchie's Tea, and I love Victoria.
So you started your career, if you will, if career is the right word to say, but I mean, you started your musical journey when you were pretty young. And then I was reading that you had basically started out by busking and kind of traveling all over the world. And so tell us kind of how old you were when you got started and what led up to you deciding to, take that act on the road the first time.
Sure. It was just out of high school. Maybe I'd done a year of college, and I took a lot of gaps in college just because I get scattered a little bit. I love learning, but I also love doing other stuff, and playing music was one of them, and traveling was a huge goal of mine my whole life. I just imagined that I couldn't imagine not going places. So I was already itching because I'd worked for a little while at a youth hostel down in. So I moved. My mother moved us when I was a kid down to Southern California, and so I was working at a youth hostel down there, and I met all these people from around the world. So I got to go traveling. So I was getting pretty okay on the guitar. I didn't have my blues band anymore, and so I said, well, I'm gonna take my guitar with me and to get on a plane and go to Europe. So I saved up a bit of money, and that's exactly what I did. I got myself the cheapest ticket I could to Switzerland, grabbed my guitar in a medium-sized backpack, and I landed, and I realized that if I don't go right now and try to busk somewhere, go play guitar somewhere and earn a few bucks, I'm just going to be lugging this guitar around with me for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it's going to be a hassle. So I got motivated. I went down, and this, I had never played a show on my own. I had never sung really in front of anybody. So this was silly. This is absolutely ridiculous. But I landed in Zurich in Switzerland, and I went down to the Zurichsee Square, which is a beautiful area with cafes and shops. And I pulled out my guitar and I started playing. And this after a little while, there was a Greek falafel vendor who came over and said, "Here," and he gave me a veggie falafel. I said, "Oh, that's really nice. Thank you so much." And after a little while later, there was a cafe across the way with like a patio outside, and the manager came out with a tray with a couple of beers on it, and he put the beers down and he gave me a couple of beers. I said, "This is going this," and the people have been putting money in my guitar case, and it really opened my eyes. I said, wow, I might do this okay. And then so I made like 90 euros, I think, in about an hour and a half of playing. I had a couple of beers and I had been fed. So I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I'm going to be doing now. And I did. I ended up going from city to city, town to town, like 16 different countries, I think, on that one trip throughout Europe. And I ended up staying there for months because I was able to make money playing in the streets.
So that Switzerland experience really solidified for you that this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, they made me feel like I was okay at it. Like I really wasn't sure if I could entertain people. If they would say, because it was just what I had, that's how I envisioned myself my whole life, ever since I was like 3 years old. I just imagined I was singing or, performing. I was madly obsessed with my mother's and my brother's records and tapes and stuff. So that's just how I thought. But man, you can delude yourself very easily. So I wasn't sure. And so it was it was really heartwarming and exciting to know that I could do that.
Do you remember if you were playing originals or were you doing covers at that time?
Okay, so yeah, that was definitely mostly, so I would do some of the blues songs, and there's and a bunch of Beatles songs. Half of what I listened to for much of my life was Beatles or directly Beatles related. So I already knew a bunch of their stuff, and yeah, I would slip in my stuff because I wanted to see, well, is my stuff any good? Yeah, sure. That it's easy to like Get Back by the Beatles, but can they like this song Parallax by St. John? So we'll see.
Awesome. Do you remember the first song, since that was your first time playing out, what was the first song you ever played in Switzerland in front of people?
Yeah, I think it was, I can reduce it down to one or two. There's a song called Rock Me, and of course everybody knows the song Killing Floor. Dun, 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 dun. So it was one of those two. I don't remember exactly which, but it was one of those.
Yeah. I assume after you had been traveling around these various countries that as a songwriter, one of the things that people do is that they take those experiences and turn them into songs. So were there some songs that you wrote based off your experience traveling around really without a plan?
Sure. They didn't necessarily become whole songs on their own, but maybe a phrase or an image or
Mm-hmm.
something that I would learn from history in on some excursion somewhere or whatever, that would end up as a thought or an idea that needs to become or like deep in a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's one of your craziest stories about being out there on the road when you were a kid? Anything just absolutely out of control happened to you? Something catch you off guard? Something surprise you? Something funny?
Yeah, one of the great things is like those trips. Okay, so let me make a point here about one of the driving things that I think is so important about making good memories is so that when times are sort of not great, you can change the channel. If you have a little bit of thought, if you can really push it, you can change the channel and say, and think about those good times. You can, if there's no sense in dwelling on the badness that's going on right now, may as well put the brain DVD on and see what was fun. So yeah, these trips, especially those when I was busking and hitchhiking all throughout Europe, they filled my nice channels up very nicely. I have tons of great memories. So I'll do one right now. So I was getting out. I was in Austria. I was in Innsbruck in Austria, and I wanted to go to Italy. So, which is south of there, and you have to go through, like, it's kind of part of the lower part of the Alps, or there's a mountain range there, and I was kind of stuck there for a little while though, and most of my hitchhiking trips have been really quick. People would see my sign and they'd see that, oh, I've got my guitar, and I looked fairly, not like I'm gonna, murder somebody probably. And hitchhiking in Europe is fantastic. So, but this one time I was like, oh, maybe I'm in a bad spot. But finally, this big truck comes up, lorry, this, like they're shipping something, and he pulls up, and he's Italian, and he says, oh, he looks at my stuff, and I wasn't sure. He wanted me to put my bag in the back, like locked away with the cargo, and usually I keep my stuff with me. And so there were a couple of sketchy things, and I was like, oh, but I really needed to ride out. So I made a couple of compromises that I typically wouldn't. And we start going along this drive, and it's a sketchy part of the road as well. Like, we're going along this high mountain pass. It's called the Brenner Pass or Brennero Pass from Austria to Italy. And it is narrow, and he is an Italian driver through and through, even in his big truck. He thinks he's an F1 racer or something. So I was like, well, and this has been a good trip so far, and this is probably how I die. We're gonna fly off the side of this thing. But no, he is a master driver. He just threads it like a freaking needle, and we come out on the other side, sliding down this hill into Italy, and opens up into this huge, glorious valley with the moon and the stars, and it was warm. We had the windows down, and he starts singing opera with he was probably in his late 40s, early 50s, but he starts singing opera, and his voice was just resonant and gorgeous. I just imagine it was echoing through the whole valley, and I just looked out the window as he sang, and he told me his story about having grown up wanting to be an opera singer, and he had trained so much. And so he made this connection with me because I was a musician. So he respected that I was out in the, playing, and it was, he just couldn't, he could not sign up for that in a tour. Like you couldn't go on to some website that books tours for you and get that sort of experience. So I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, you never know. Sometimes people seem kind of sketchy, and then you find out you got something in common, and before you know it, all those preconceived notions kind of go out the window. So that's an awesome story. Well, I think now would be a super perfect time for you to maybe pick up that guitar, play us a song, and tell us the story of how the song came to be.
Okay, let's do it. I am stalling right now because I'm deciding which song I'm going to play. Here we go.
Yeah, this is totally unrehearsed, folks. We're just kind of winging this off the top of our heads here.
It's pretty close to live. It's pretty close to live, you guys. Yeah. So this is really fun. We were just talking about, early life and making good memories. So I'm going to play a song that I wrote about the end of my life. This is a song that I wrote. It's kind of my funeral song in a way.
Okay.
And yeah, we're going to have you guys are, if all the listeners are as well, and Mike, you are as well, you're now invited to my funeral. I feel like we've made a connection.
Oh, I'll be there.
We're going to host. Yeah, we're going to host it down at the water's edge somewhere where it's convenient for most folks. And you guys put my body in a wooden boat, and I need somebody there with some archery skills because I need that flaming arrow. And then I got, you guys have a big party out on the water there and play a bunch of music and drink some beer, get stoned, or however, whatever people are into.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah. Here we go. It's been a good time. I cannot complain. I pulled the ark through the desert. You tried to be my rain. I laughed free, sang in the heat of love, dancing in the rain, let in my boxing gloves. So let's meet at sunset. I'll be floating on my back in a boat on fire through the waves. Let's meet at sunset. I'll be floating on my back in a boat on fire through the waves. My last words, my wisdom, my life story. Instead, just I love you, I love you. So let's meet at sunset. I'll be floating on my back in a boat on fire through the waves. Let's meet at sunset. I'll be floating on my back in a boat on fire through the waves. You made it all worth Yeah, that's called Let's Meet at Sunset. So
Awesome.
many, many years from now, hundreds of years from now, hopefully, we'll
Well,
meet for my funeral.
I appreciate the invite to your funeral. I think that's the first one I've ever gotten in advance. So,
Oh yeah, too. You don't have to bring me anything. It's fine.
right on. Cool. So, at some point, your travels abroad kind of led you back to the U.S.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you were going to incorporate the use of other musicians and hook up with what became the Revelations?
Yeah, so I think I knew it had to. I mean, I could play some shows solo. I would come back. I came back and I would play at some cafes and things like that and make a little bit of money. But I knew that to do anything, I definitely have to have a band, and I wanted a band anyway. I wanted keyboards and drums, and I wanted the whole thing. I even, I still want more now. I've got a fairly sizable band now, but I want horns and other parts too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I started asking around friends and people at school, people in my college, and met a keyboard player through college, and it just sort of bubbled out. People introduced me to other people, and I've definitely got to play with a lot of great musicians throughout the years. I've been very fortunate.
That's awesome. And so the decision to kind of go the full band was just more that you felt like you needed more people to express yourself with to get that idea across in a different fashion.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All the ideas of all the music that I heard and all the music that I was writing, even though I could play them and get the idea across solo on the guitar, it wasn't complete. It wasn't full like I heard it in my head. So, and I've always had a cello in my band because that's one of the very specific voices I almost always hear when I'm writing. So I can always hear a cool cello part or, yeah.
So you came back, you ended up in Venice Beach. I like the story you said, or the blurb about saying you ended up with all of the vagrants, the homeless, the gangbangers, and all that kind of stuff, the poets, the beatniks.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody knows Venice Beach very well, that's, especially when I was living there, it was a time where it was a great mix of people, and it was affordable to live there. So you had a lot of artists and people of different walks of life. It wasn't all just people, tech workers or people who made really good money like it is now. All the artists and all those, not all of them, but most of the cool folks have unfortunately been moved along out of Venice in favor of the rich folks. But yeah, Venice at the time was super fun, very artistic, and it was a party. I got to meet a lot of and play shows and organize shows with a bunch of cool bands.
Yeah, well, and you ended up recording your first two albums during that time frame.
Yeah.
And tell us about those albums.
Yeah, I learned how to do the home recording. I kept on upgrading my home recording studio gear, and I loved that, they gave you a bunch of instruments so you could, even before you had the musicians come in and play the parts, you could sort of sketch out what you wanted and record a little, because, if for the people out there that might be listening who don't know, that they have all these samples in the computers, so you can just say, oh, if I want a trumpet or if I want a piano or I want oboe, you can just pop it up. It doesn't necessarily sound good until you bring in the real stuff to record it, but it's like a demo. It gives you a sketch. So I was learning how to do that, and I kept finding great, people to record with, and it was fun. It was so exciting to be able to say, look, I can record at home, because you grow up thinking you need to have the big studios and all that, and it's like, no, they give you can do it at home now. So I felt liberated. It was exciting and liberated, because people, I could put the music online, and then all of a sudden it was a huge thing on MySpace. I had like 90,000 fans on MySpace because people were sharing. It's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And just out of my little apartment in Venice Beach.
Yeah, that's crazy. And because of your epic online recordings, you were able to kind of get some pretty awesome gigs with some pretty cool people that led to more opportunities for you, right?
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah. A really a well-known producer down in Los Angeles was connected to somebody who sent him my music, and he contacted me. His name is Paul Fox, and he had recorded like Semisonic and the Wallflowers and Ziggy Marley and Bjork, tons of artists and songs that we all know. And he said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And I had just actually kind of not, most of my band had sort of had been shed by this point, so I didn't really have a band. He said, "So do you have a band right now?" I said, "Well, I have a really good drummer, but not so much else at the moment." He said, "Well, let me see what I can find for you. And, do you want to work?" He asked, "Do you want?" He came over to my apartment and he said, play me some songs, and we did the whole meet and greet. It was wonderful. He was a really cool guy, and he said, "Well, I like your songs and I like you, and so let's see if I can find you some guys to play with." So that'd be super cool. And I thought, he was going to sort of shop around Los Angeles and, maybe find some studio musicians, and great, they're excellent players. And a few weeks later, I get an email. So, "Hey man, do you want to go up to Seattle and record some songs?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. You found some musicians?" He said, "Oh yeah, I got some musicians for you." And I said, "Oh great. Well, who is he?" He said, "Well, I can't really tell you yet, but I'll give you a hint." And he types back, "Losing my religion."
Yeah.
And I said, "What in the losing my religion? That doesn't, I mean, that's an REM song. What does he mean by REM? Like that didn't sound that." And so I kind of, over the next couple of weeks, I pressed him on a little bit, and he revealed to me what it was. And it happened to be Peter Buck of REM and Scott McCoy and Bill Rieflin, a couple of their musicians that, have been playing with him for years, and invited me up to record with them. And I was like, no. I just said, "No, you're kidding me." I did not believe it. I trusted him, but I did not believe it. If you can reconcile those two thoughts. So it wasn't until I got off the plane up here in Seattle, and Bill Rieflin, the drummer, picked me up from my place and took me to the rehearsal studio. And I'm walking up. I got my guitars in hand and walking up the other direction up the sidewalk. There's Peter Buck. I said, "I can't believe it. It's actually true.
Yeah,
it's really happening." Because I grew up on, REM is the soundtrack of, like, that's on the radio all the time. Everybody knows their songs. That was so, and they wanted to play on my music. That was weird. So, yeah, I was stoked.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you got to go in the studio with these guys, record your songs, right? More or less.
Yeah.
And how did that process go? Did they respond like immediately to it? Did they offer you, "Hey, let's do it this way instead"? Or did you pretty much run the show and they did it as is?
Okay, yeah. So they are so pro. Like, I had never been in a professional studio before. So that scenario where I was talking about walking up and meeting him, well, that was the Sunday before we were going to go into the studio. So we were at Bill's rehearsal studio, and they had all the drums set up. So we rehearsed that Sunday. I showed him the song, we played him through, and I had already said to myself, "Look, I don't want to run this show." I said, I've never done this before. I will definitely have my creative ideas, of course, and I'll need to hear some things, but I need them. I want to watch them do this. I want to see how it's done, because I want to learn. Like, they've been doing this forever. If I'm running the show, I'm an idiot. Like, they are the best. So I had to play it kind of cool. Like, the next day when we went into the recording studio, they had these cool little devices that stuck up up off the ground that had these dials on, and they said, with the headphones on. So that was going to be my own monitor to hear the thing. And they knew exactly how the thing worked. I'd never seen one before. And they were putting it on and dialing it in. And I was just just like sweating, not showing it, but like, okay. And I'm out of the corner of my eye, I'm just watching them, what they're doing. Okay, I've got it. I understand what this is. That's for the mind. Okay. And I just put it all together really quickly. But that's kind of like how I played it off the first couple of days, especially, just to pretend like it was okay that I was there. They had not made a huge mistake, just maybe a minor mistake.
Yeah. Well, I assume, obviously, because I did get a chance to hear that album that you did. It came out really good. And
oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And, it's kind of funny. You would never know necessarily that they were, for instance, REM musicians, because it definitely had the St. John flavor in there, which was really cool. So after the project was said and done, and you guys kind of parted ways, was there ever any, future connection with these guys at all, or was that pretty much just it?
Oh, sure. No, yeah. So, the rest of that recording session was, we did most of the songs as I'd written them, and there was one part where they're like, well, this song needs a bridge. And I said, okay. And I wasn't sure what they meant. They kind of meant that I was supposed to take the song away and come back, and then tomorrow we'll record it. I'll take a song back, write a bridge, and we'll record it. And so, but I didn't know they meant that. I thought I needed to write a bridge right there. So I sat down and within about 45 seconds or a minute, I wrote this little instrumental bridge section. And like, that's really good. I said, okay, cool, thank you. I said, well, we didn't expect it right now, but yeah, we'll play that. I said, okay, cool. So they were really nice. And we exchanged information. We went out for dinners. When Peter visits, we've gone to go see shows together, go see like great artists like Kurt Weill. And and we keep in touch also through other people in the industry that we know, and through email. Unfortunately, it's super sad. Bill Rieflin, the drummer, he just died about a week or two ago. Yeah. And if the listeners don't know, if you guys know bands like, KMFDM and Ministry, and he even played with 9 Inch Nails.
Really old school stuff.
He was, he was such a brilliant drummer. He was one of the most musical drummers I've ever met. And because he lived up here, he and I hung out a bit more often. We'd go for coffee and go see other shows like the Crocodile and things like that. But he just died of cancer, 59 or so. So that's a huge loss. But go and listen to, if you guys are looking to hear some just tremendous drumming, he left us years worth of awesome drum listing. So go check it out.
Yeah. Well, I had originally heard that story regarding the, REM members and Peter Buck and kind of how you came to be with them when I heard you at the Brother Don's Songwriter Showcase, which was over a year ago at this point. And,
yeah, okay.
That particular show I thought was really cool because there were some really talented people playing there. And I've been to a million open mics and songwriter showcases and all that stuff in my day. And sometimes you get people that are just starting out. Sometimes you get people that are there to kind of just practice and polish their craft. And I remember thinking, wow, there's some really, really, really cool people that are playing today. And then you got up and, one of the rules, I call it rules, but it's pretty loose, but is that, they don't really like people to play cover songs. But you played a cover song of a Tom Petty song. And I remember looking at my wife before you started singing. I'm like, this is Tom Petty. And she's like, nah. And I'm like, this is fucking Tom Petty. And you really kind of made that song your own. And then as I started kind of going back and listening to the music you've put up online and watched a few of your streams and realizing that when you play cover songs, you don't just play your version of a song, kind of note for note, which is kind of what people do with covers. You completely redo them in a very original format. And so what is your process for breaking down a song and really kind of reworking it? What's your thought process on how you do that?
It's really just not being a very good player. So when I try to play it, that's how it comes out.
Okay.
So,
So you're not overthinking it then. That's just, it's.
I really, it definitely has, if I'm going to play a song, if I'm going to play a cover song, it can't be the way I've heard it a million times before, because I will probably slit my throat while I'm playing. I'll get really bored. I need to definitely, I just know it's an imperative. I have some obsessive compulsive tendencies for sure, and when I do a cover song, it's one of them. I can't bring it the same way.
Yeah. Well, maybe you would indulge us in another performance of a cover song, maybe something that you were inspired by, or maybe just something you're particularly proud of. So take your pick and tell us what you're going to do.
Well, let's do that Tom Petty song, man.
Awesome.
If you like that one, you mentioned it.
I loved it. It was amazing.
Okay, let's do that. I miss our Tom. I miss our Tom every day. There's not a single day where I don't think about Tom Petty.
Yeah.
So
my wife and I were lucky enough to see him at his last show in Seattle.
Nice.
And it was literally just a couple of weeks before, and it was absolutely epic, unforgettable. And the sound crew, something happened, like the first two songs they played, there was no audio. So they were up there playing, right? There's no sound coming through. The crowd's yelling, "We can't hear you! We can't hear you!" And then finally, they kind of figure out that they're playing with no music, and they get it all fixed. And he comes back on, and he goes, "Can you fucking hear me now?" It was awesome. But yeah, it was only a couple weeks later that he wasn't with us anymore. So yeah. He
was just so. Just a magnificent figure. Okay. So yeah, this is an older Tom Petty song too. One of the things one of my rules about cover songs is I don't usually do the obvious cover song. So if you do somebody says, "Oh, do a Tom Petty song," they might give you "Free Falling," or name like one of his other ultra hits. But I'd also like to dig a little bit deeper into the catalog, so it comes out as a little more original also. So that's what we're going to do here.
You better watch what you say. You better watch what you do to me. Don't get carried away. If you can do better than me, go. Just go. But remember, good love is hard to find. Good love is hard to find. You got lucky, babe. You got lucky, babe, when I found you. You put a hand on my cheek. Your eyes then look away. If I don't make you complete, if I don't take you all of the way, go. Just go. But remember, good love is hard to find. Good love is hard to find. You got lucky, babe. You got lucky, babe, when I found you.
Ah, man, I just have chills hearing that. It's just so, yeah, it's so different, and still respectful to the source. So, that's
Yeah, that it's a testament to a good good song and a good songwriter, like great songwriter like Tom Petty, is that you can take one of those songs and you can transform it, and it's still going to come across a great song. It doesn't rely on the production of of how they first recorded to be a good song, which happens. If you take a lot of pop songs that are on the radio and you took all the button pressers out and just had the first out, it wouldn't and I'm not, there's a great value to the song, so please, I don't want hate mail on those. I love a lot of pop songs. I even cover some of them, but it's different. The structures of those songs are different, and
well, it takes a certain kind to really be able to interpret things and still have it be recognizable. So props to you on that one, man. That's easily up there in my top 10 favorite cover versions of any Tom Petty song I've ever heard. So yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
knocking it out. So, well, bringing it back then to current times, obviously, as we touched on earlier with the current COVID situation, you're kind of cooped up in your house. What's going on with the band then? Are you writing new material? Are you taking this opportunity to kind of produce some new stuff?
Yeah, I went into, I don't know if I want to call it, I went into manic mode where, I was already so busy before everything was going on, because I had tons of shows and they were all going super well and I was promoting them well. So it takes a bit of work. But when all my shows just went away on one day, they just vanished because of, all the bars and everything closing, I had to switch gears immediately. So I went immediately just writing like crazy. I said, okay, well, when I'm done with this, I want to have I basically want to have a huge, strong foundation to build on again, with my shows. I want to have a better social networking presence. I want to have tons of songs. I want to finally, start doing this live webcast stream. I want to have a ton of songs to play when I get out.
Yeah. We refer to that in the corporate world as pivoting. But that's definitely, something that I've noticed a lot of artists are basically having to really be creative in the way that they think about how they approach their audiences with engagement and saying, hey, I'm still here. So, are you still working with the Revelations, or are you kind of working on solo material right now?
There's not much that I can do with them. I sent some demo tracks to Oliver, our drummer, because he has the ability to record drums at home. So he's trying to make time for that. It's just difficult because I've got the studio here at my place, and nobody can come over, of course. So I am definitely mostly doing solo stuff. Well, we'll try and do some collaborations where we'll splice together some videos. We'll keep as much momentum going as we can, but being realistic that we can all pop onto social media and say hello to each other and share pictures. I was also starting up a new local Kitsap County music project called Moon Ghost.
Okay.
And that we had our first show we were supposed to have our first show just maybe a week after everything got shut down. So that was kind of disheartening. So I especially kind of went into songwriting mode for that project as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean you're one of the people out there in the world that you literally rely on that live element, the performance factor, to make your living. I mean, you are a working musician.
Sure.
And so kind of taking it past just the hobbyist level, this is something that's affected you greatly, correct?
Oh, everything. It is affected everything about my life. Definitely. I still make royalties. I write songs for other people as well, and I write songs on commission. So I can make a bit of money on that, doing that as well, but most of my money is for sure from live performances. But if any of your listeners are out there right now and they say, oh, you know what, I want to hear this guy on Spotify, you should. And then when you're done listening to me on Spotify, just turn the music down and let it repeat a million times, because I get a portion of a penny for each play it gets. But yeah, please, I'm an independent musician, you guys, share it.
Well, so you mentioned Spotify, of course. What are the other platforms that you're on where people can find your music at?
Yeah, I think I try to be on all of them. So Apple Music, Deezer, Pandora. I have, if they go to my website, sjatr.com, I have a bunch of music on there. YouTube. I try to have it fairly accessible for folks.
Yeah. And right now you're focusing your primary focus is on kind of developing this webcast. So tell us about that. Kind of what's the idea behind it? How do people engage with it? Is it on a regular schedule?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier, when living in Venice Beach, you meet a lot of people in the broadcast industry, and you just knowing them, all of a sudden you learn how to do stuff. So I got all the broadcasting software and got set up my cameras, and so I definitely need to get into webcasting, and so I channel it all up, put it on my Patreon so folks could support my video making on Patreon, and I did a few test shows. I said, okay, how does it look on Facebook? How does it look on Twitter? How does it look on Instagram? And I determined what really looks best on YouTube. It's the high quality. People can put it up on their televisions, which looks super slick. They've been sending me photos, like fans from around the world, like in the United Kingdom, Canada, everywhere, sending me photos of me performing on their huge televisions on their wall. It's like, it looks cool, and now that I've done a few test episodes, I have a regular schedule. It's, every Sunday and Tuesday at noon Pacific, and then Wednesday at 7:30 or 7, it's on my site. And then on Friday at 6:00.
Yeah. That's awesome. And, speaking of Sundays, you were hosting regular Sundays with St. John at a local brewery, correct?
Yes. I don't remember exactly which brewery that was, because I've done that at a few. I've had the same format at a few, or a similar format at a few venues. I have had so many residencies around the Pacific Northwest of places that I perform at consistently.
Cool. So as far as this webcast goes, if people want to check it out and kind of log into it, you send them like an invite link, say, hey, I'm going live on this channel or that channel, Facebook, YouTube, and then they can just kind of click on it and join in the session?
Yeah, there are persistent links to it on my website. There are persistent links to it on my Instagram profile. I try to share it on Twitter and Facebook. Patreon subscribers, they get an email, a daily email reminder with a link in there, so it's easy for them to go, oh yeah, I have nothing, because so many people are like, how am I going to fill my time right now? What am I going to do? And it's so cool that tons of really talented musicians. I've had such a great time watching folks perform. Like I have a bunch of musician friends that I always, oh, you know what? I'm not doing anything right now. I'll scroll through. Oh, they're performing. Cool. I'll click on it and watch them for a few minutes. It's a great way to spend and kind of reconnect with people too, because if you share it on your profile and you say, hey guys, start a watch party or join me in here, it's kind of like going to a show a little bit together. I show that it's live. If people message, I definitely comment to them, and it's very interactive.
Yeah, and I can tell you guys firsthand that St. John is in fact very active with his audience during the live streams. He'll answer questions. He'll give you shout outs. He'll drink a virtual beer with you. He'll play songs by request. It's really cool. So if you get a chance,
thanks, man. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, make sure that you follow St. John on all of his social media channels, as well as his website, as well as his music sites. Buy his music, subscribe to his channels, watch the webcasts, and most importantly, become a patron. Support him in all of his endeavors, because this is a dude that deserves to be out there sharing his music with the world. And of course, if you like what I'm doing, do the same for me here on Misery Point Radio. Follow me on all the channels, all that good stuff. So, St. John, dude, this has been absolutely epic. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me here on Misery Point Radio. How about we close this out with one last song? Tell us what we're going to hear.
You got it, Mike. Misery Point Radio, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to sing a song for you. We were talking about Son House and John the Revelator. This is a song that is sort of in the same vein, but it was written by St. John the Revelator. So this is one of my originals. It's called Madman.
Well, none of the colors in my eyes can explain what I see in you. I thought I was doomed to my abyss, but your smile came to my rescue. What do you want? What do you need? Are you asking the sky right now? Maybe you'll find that some of it, the God's on me and out. Oh, I hope like a madman, I dance like a madman, and I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Oh, I hope like a madman, I dance like a madman, and I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Well, knocked down, picked up, seeing you. Now there's thunder in my soul. I feel like I was a starving man with a never empty bowl. No, no, no. I hope like a madman, I dance like a madman, I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Oh, I hope like a madman, and I dance like a madman, and I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Was never here before, it might not come again. I wanna be calm, I wanna be cool, but how can I maintain when I walk like a madman, I dance like a madman, I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Oh, I hope like a madman, I dance like a madman, and I dream like a madman. Oh, to be your man. Your man. Your man. Your man.
Absolutely epic. And you know, we were going to leave it at that because I did say, hey, St. John, close us out with a song. And it was such a huge honor to have him play 3 songs for us live here today. However, I thought, what kind of a host would I be if I didn't play at least one of the songs that he got the chance to record with members of REM, specifically Peter Buck, Scott McCoy, and Bill Rieflin, who is unfortunately no longer with us. So we're going to really close out the show this time with one of those songs. So check it out. This one's called Hear Me Now.
If I just lay down on the floor, desert with the old west facade. I'm real, I'm here. You might have to ask for something when I should just volunteer. But know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow. You might turn and walk away, I might curse up something mean. You can wash my mouth with bitter soap, I'll try to keep it clean. They never engraved us on some far-flung satellite, but we can launch and leave this far behind. Let the sun reignite. I'm not Apollo, not some pretty Greek god, not that new town in the desert with the old west facade. I'm real, I'm here. You might have to ask for something when I should just volunteer. But know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow. Know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow. Know this. Know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow. Know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow. Know this, please hear me now. You won't find a truer promise or a stronger spoken vow.